Alright, Kuf Beis Amud Aleph, 102a, all the way at the bottom of the page. Very last line. Rabbi Abahu. It's an interesting story the Gemara begins with, and I've been trying to think of what this means. I'll share with you what where my thoughts are going, but I don't have anything fully concrete on the story, but I'll just tell you the story and then I'll tell you what my thoughts are. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. This is the literal meaning of the story. Rabbi was accustomed that he would expound, he would talk about, he would preach about the three kings. When he says three kings here, he's referring to the three kings mentioned in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that there were three kings who did not get a share in the world to come. 3 kings and 4 commoners, right? That was the line in the Mishnah. We don't have the Mishnah in the packet, but there are 3 kings that were listed in the Mishnah. The first Yeravam, the next Achav, which we're about to talk about, and the third one, Menashe. Isn't that right? The third one's Menashe. So Rabbi would commonly talk about their story, their life, and whatnot. And obviously, it would be negative about these kings. They're bad kings to the point that they lost their share in the world to come, the Mishnah says. So one day, Chalash, he got sick. Rabbi got sick. So Kibul Allah, he accepted upon himself, Daloi Darish, that he's no longer going to talk about these 3 people. It seems that he felt that it was like a retribution for constantly talking negatively about these people, about these 3 kings. That's why he got sick. So he accepted upon himself, that's it, I'm done, I'm no longer talking about them. Kiven de Itfech, once he got healed, so he got healed sometime later, on top of Kuf Beis and Beis, Hadar Kadarish, he went back to talking about the same 3 kings. Okay. Amri, so his student said to him, did you not accept upon yourself that you're no longer going to talk about these 3 kings?
While I'm sick.
Doesn't quite, it's interesting, but to tell what the story says. So Amar, so Rabbi Bo responded to the students, Inu, those 3, Mi Hadrabu, did they do teshuvah? Did they go back on their way? Now I should go back on my word. They didn't fix their ways. What do I have to fix my ways for? End of story. So I'm trying to make sense of the story, and this is where this is the story in of itself. What was Rabbi thinking when he was sick, and what did he think later? Like, what happened? So this is where I'm going with this. This is what I'm thinking. You can tell me what. This is the end of the story. No further commentary. Nothing. That's it.
No criticism.
Next story. Yep.
On to the next one. Okay.
Goes on to the next story. Yep. And Rashi doesn't give much commentary other than just explaining the story on a literal level. I'm sure there are other commentaries, but this is where I'm thinking is like this: that Rabbi Bo, in talking about them, was actually trying to help in their cleansing process. And when a Yid learns Torah here, and when a person speaks about neshamas of people of previous generations, it has an effect on those neshamas themselves. I've seen even there's 2 kinds of incidents, one in both ways. One incident I heard from a shliach whose father was involved in writing history for Chabad, and in writing history of the early generation of Chabad, he wanted to write a chapter on some of the people who mistakenly berated the Chabad movement in the earlier generations. Surrounding the whole story of the 19th of Kislev, the Alter going into jail and coming out of jail, the whole story. And the Rebbe commented, like, you can leave this part out, because now the person's in the world to come, he's the world of truth, and certainly no longer now stands in that same opposition they did when he was living. Why bring it up for him? In other words, it's not going to do any help for his neshama up there. You're talking negatively about him down here. Conversely, similar story, this is not explicit, but it's implicit. The famous story in the end of Gemara Sukkah about a woman named Miriam Bas Bilga, Miriam daughter of Bilga, who when the Beis Mikdash was being destroyed, she hit the Beis Mikdash, she hit the altar, she took her shoe off and she hit the altar, and she said, you wolf, talking to the altar, you consumed Jewish money, meaning you took offerings, which cost the Jews money every day and all time, and here the Jews are suffering and you're doing nothing. So because of her audacity, she was banished. The Gemara has very negative things to say about her family, her whole family, a whole negative thing. Now the Rebbe spoke about this story in the Gemara, and very famously defended her. How's that? In saying that the reason why, of course she spoke wrongly and she shouldn't speak that way, but the very fact that she spoke that way means she still cared about her fellow Jew. But what was she doing when she's screaming at the altar? Defending her fellow Jew. I mean, she didn't, even though she married a Greek woman, a non-Jewish woman, she married a general of the army that's persecuting the Jewish people, but she still didn't fully detach herself. Proof, she's willing to go and defend the Jewish people, albeit not in a nice way, but she was still defending the Jewish people. And therefore the Rebbe said like this, and that's why she got punished. Because someone who doesn't, someone who's completely puts himself outside the purview of the Jewish people is, like the Rambam writes, is mufker lehevker, is left off to happenstance. But the fact that she's actively punished means she's still connected, but she has to be cleansed. So they put like a positive spin on it. And it was understood that when they was doing that, there was bringing her neshama up there to a place of rest. So therefore I'm suggesting that perhaps Rabbi, in and of himself, felt that his talking about these three kings is, it doesn't say that he was speaking negatively about them. It says kadarish. He spoke about them a lot. Now I would assume that, I mean, the simple reading would be that he's speaking negatively, but it doesn't say so. It just says kadarish, he's speaking about them. So maybe in his speaking about them, he was actually trying to bring the neshama some peace in heaven. Notwithstanding the fact that the Gemara says that they lost to share the world to come.
And they also didn't do tshuva, as he said himself.
Oh, and then when Rabbi got sick, right? So he thought to himself, this is just my suggestion of the story, he thought to himself, perhaps the fact that he himself is getting sick is, in a way, him accepting upon himself some of their cleansing, some of their guilt, and that way speeding up the process of their cleansing. And therefore he said, I'm no longer talking about them, because it's done. I've done my job already. I've already got them their cleansing. But then when he got healed, he kept on talking about them, because did they finish doing teshuvah? They didn't. They still need more cleansing. So I got to get back to talking to them about them more.
But
perhaps. I'm completely reversing the meaning of the story on the simple level. On the simple level, it means he's speaking negatively, he got sick, and he kept on going because he decided, I don't care about them anymore. That's the simple reading of the Gemara, but I'm turning it around and saying that he was talking about them in a way that would help their neshama get cleansing. The Gemara declares that they lost a share in the world to come, so there is no cleansing for them. Even when he got sick, it didn't help. And therefore, when he's done getting sick, he said, I'm not giving up, I'm going to keep on talking about them.
Right, to try to reverse the decree.
Exactly. To try to get them their cleansing in the world to come.
But he himself acknowledged that they didn't do tshuva, so they're still...
Which is why I keep on talking about them. Why do you keep on talking about them? Because they didn't do tshuva. In other words, they didn't get their cleansing yet.
But how do you...
The literal language of the Gemara is not that they didn't do tshuva. It says, did they go back?
Yeah.
In other words, did they come back from their negative place? They didn't, so I'm going to keep on talking about them. I know, it's just saying, I explicitly am changing the simple meaning of the story. But this is where I'm thinking. Anyway.
What I
perhaps
out of this, because he got sick and then got better and went back to doing what he did, is sort of like, I look at it only because of getting sick and getting better and repeating, is as you sit down and you eat an entire cake and you get sick after and you say, oh, I'm never going to do that again. Yeah. And now you're feeling better a couple of days later.
You keep on going.
And you go back and you eat another cake.
That's the simple meaning of the story.
Yeah.
The simple reading of the story is that he decided, you know what? These guys aren't good people. I don't care. That's a simple reading of the story. But it's just like he went back on his word. I mean, Rabbi, we're talking about a sage of the Gemara. What kind of thing is this to go back on his word?
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't...
So
that's the part of the story that's making me think that there's something deeper going on. And that's why I'm suggesting this I'm acknowledging it's completely reversed from the simple reading of the story.
Right. So
I'm suggesting this whole reverse reading.
Maybe you thought originally that maybe you went too far and then realized they didn't do tshuva, so you can keep on making the drasha. That's what you probably felt. Because it connects with the next Gemara.
It could be also with a kid who steps out of
the
line.
next Gemara is that like he criticized them and said, no, these were great people. So.
Right.
Yeah,
or it could also connect in the way I was saying, you'll see in a moment, it could connect to the way I was learning it also. Perhaps.
So a kid that, like, he steps out of line, but he's having fun doing what he's doing, then gets a beating from his father and says, "Oh, this."
Rabbi Bo is not a kid.
I know.
That's what I'm saying. That's a simple reading of the story, but it doesn't sit well with me because we're talking about a Rabbi Bo. We're talking about a sage of the Gemara.
Right.
The Gemara refers to him as Rabbi. He's not somebody who plays with his words, even if he was sick. And all of a sudden he's well again. He forgot. He's like, oh yeah, what I said then doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. That part of the story doesn't sit. Like I understand what you're saying, but we're talking about Rabbi Bo. We're talking about a sage of a caliber that none of us can imagine or hope or see. Him to go back on his word because he's not sick anymore. I mean, it's like, that's why I'm suggesting perhaps the whole thing was he's trying to help their neshamas, and when he got sick, he figured, okay, that's it. I've accepted in my sickness, I'm taking on some of their cleansing. But then when he got well again and he sees their cleansing isn't done yet, he says, Lo yahadribu, they didn't go back. Meaning they didn't get there. They didn't come back. They're still stuck in their negative place. I'm going to keep on talking about them.
Was there another sage that was locked out of the world to come, and then some of his students were doing similar?
He also tried to get him into the world to come. That's right. It's not an uncommon thing that people here will try to do things to get the people in the world to come to that place. Sorry? That's why we say Kaddish, yeah.
But wasn't that
correct.
More explicit in the Acher?
Yeah. No, I'm saying I'm borrowing from that idea and transplanting it onto the story here. Maybe. Anyway, it's just the suggested reading, and I am acknowledging it's not the literal reading, so take it for what it's worth. Okay, next story. And I'll go with the simple reading as it connects to the previous story, as Rabbi Gimel suggested, and then I'll suggest how it might be connected to the way we're reading the Gemara before. So here's a simple reading of the Gemara. This is the straightforward reading, not simple reading, the straightforward reading. Rav Ashi Ukiya Shloshim Malachim. Rav Ashi, in his lectures in the yeshiva, Rav Ashi is one of the not the redactors, is that what they call it, the redactors? Yeah. Like the editors, one of the final editors of the Gemara. So Ukiya Shloshim Malachim. In his lecture series, he got to the point where he's going to talk about these three kings. Yeravam, Achav, and Menashe, these three kings of the Gemara, where the Mishnah declared, have no share in the world to come. Amar, and he told the students at the end of the class, Lamachar, tomorrow, Niftach B'chavrin, we're going to begin talking about our friends. In other words, Rav Ashi is telling his people, his students, that these three kings were our equals, that they study Torah. So we are here scholars, they are scholars. So tomorrow we're going to talk about our colleagues.
So there's some background about these kings, right?
Being, yes, having some hazard and positive straight. That's why I think it connects to what I was saying before. That maybe Rabbi Bo is trying to find their positive. Not necessarily what you're talking there. The Gemara doesn't say explicitly if he's talking about their good or their bad. It doesn't say what he was talking about. That's what I'm suggesting. Maybe he was even talking about their good, trying to redeem them. And that's maybe how it connects to this Gemara. But anyway, you can read it both ways, obviously. So Rav Ashi said, okay, tomorrow we're going to talk about our colleagues because they're scholars. So now, Menashe is Chazile B'chalma. Now, King Menashe, the third of these three kings, appeared to Rav Ashi in a dream before the lecture he's going to give the next morning on talking about him, about Menashe. And Amar, and Rav Menashe said, Chaverecha, you're calling me your colleague, the Chavere Davuch, Kardi Salon, you're calling us your colleagues and the colleagues of your father? You think you and I are equals? Nah. I'm going to test you. I'm going to show you that you don't know anything. You know nothing like your scholarship is nowhere near my scholarship. Menashe is telling Rav Ashi in a dream, this king who's out of the world, who's out of the purview of the world to come. So he challenges him like this. Where are you supposed to cut the bread when you make the bracha on moitzi? On Shabbos, or any time. But if you're supposed to, today is different because you buy cut loaf slices. But in theory, you make your own bread, you have a full loaf of bread, and you're supposed to make a bracha on a full loaf, if you can. And certainly we do that on Shabbos, you have 2 full loaves of bread. And where you cut the bread, didn't see as a pass. There's a whole section of the Shulchan Aruch, where and how you cut the bread when you make a bracha. So he asks him, where are you supposed to make the bread? Where are you supposed to cut the bread when you make a bracha? You're all looking at me with these faces. It's an obscure halacha. That's the point. I'm not just showing Rav Ashi.
I'm looking at you because
I know
now I'm going to learn I'm doing something wrong.
it's a rather obscure halacha, and especially in today's day and age where we have slices of bread, we don't do it as much. When it comes to Shabbos, it's important to know these things. Actually, in the Shulchan Aruch, Tin B'tzias Pas comes up in Shabbos also.
So I can correct whatever I'm doing.
Yes,
wrong.
the Gemara does. So Amar Lei, so Rav Ashi told Menashe.
Mishpia didn't teach you.
Yeah.
Your Mishpia didn't teach you yet.
I have a mishpia.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway.
Amar Lei, so the king Menashe told Rav Ashi, Lo yadana, I don't know where you cut bread when you make a bracha. I have no idea. Amalei, so Menashe says, at the location where you're supposed to cut the bread when you make hamotzi, loy gemirisa. You never learned that. You're calling me your colleague. I'm not your colleague. I'm not your father's colleague. I mean, even the generation before you, I'm not their colleagues either. I'm far superior. And this is Menashe, who's outside of the world, outside of the world to come. So Amalei, so Rav Ashi tells Menashe in the dream, Agimirali, teach me. And tomorrow, Darshina lebishmech, the Pirka. Tomorrow I'm going to teach it in the class in your name. So I'll give you some credit here in this world. Comes to the class tomorrow, I'm going to share what you taught me about where you're supposed to cut the bread when you make a motzi. Amalei, so Menashe said, Mehecha de kardim bishulei. You're supposed to cut it at the place where there's the best crust. Where the crust is. That's the halacha. So today, our breads have nice and equal crust everywhere, so you can end up really cutting it anywhere. But although should we know, like on the side sometimes, where it's softer than the top, maybe you're supposed to cut it in the top, maybe. But back in the old day, it was a whole chachma to get equal crust. It wasn't so simple. They used to take loaves of bread. The Gemara, I don't know this from the Gemara. I've never seen an ancient oven. I only know this from the dinim of the Gemara on Shabbos of the Dias Hapas, which is they would take a loaf of bread and they would stick it onto the wall, on the top of a wall of a brick oven. So the brick would get hot, cooking that part, and then the bottom would get cooked by the flame. So you kind of get an even. The point was to try to get an even crust all over, and then when it became cooked enough, the dough would stop sticking,
it would fall
and
off.
you would. So it was a whole chachma, it was a whole like art to get the bread down without it falling into the flame and burning it. Number one, number two, and taking it off at the right time before it's completely not stick, but after it's already cooked. Now, when you take it out, it would mean that some parts are better crusted than others. And that's the halacha. You cut it at the crusted place, where it's the best slice.
Is that the word? I remember at home the word scribeshik.
I don't know the English, but in the language of the Gemara, it's called Redias Hapas.
That's what I
don't know. The Gemara's language is called Redias Hapas. It's a whole complicated set of halachas on Shabbos. If it was put up before Shabbos and then cooked into Shabbos, can you take it down? When can you? When can't you? It's a whole complicated thing. For somebody else, and once someone took it down, you're allowed to eat it. It's a whole complicated set of halachas.
So I haven't been doing something really wrong.
No, it's all good. Okay. Remember, Rav Ashi himself didn't know the halacha, right? All right.
Wasn't there something in Barachat about Nehardin cut? You cut near the end.
Sorry, say again?
It was called Nehardia.
Nahardia is a place.
To cut near the end of the bread, I thought.
In Naharda?
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't remember. Yes? Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, they bake very well at the end, but we do more in the middle.
It says our ovens cook them much more equally, so we cut them down the middle. But back in the day, it wasn't like that. Not necessarily that all your whole bread come out so evenly nice. Today you go to the bakery and you have 50 loaves of bread that almost look exactly identical. It didn't exist too long ago. Okay. So the story continues. Okay, so now the king Menashe, the idol-worshipping king Menashe taught Rav Ashi something. And Rav Ashi promised to share the information the next day in the name of Menashe. Amalei, so Rav Ashi asked Menashe the obvious question, since you guys are such great Torah scholars, why would you walk off to idol worship? I don't get this. I mean, look at you. You're a scholar. You could have been from the best of the best. Amalei. So Menashe tells Rav Ashi, if you were there, having a kita b'shilufi galima, you would raise up like the bottom of your robe, and you would run after it. In other words, you can't run very fast when you have those robes that the Arabs wear. That's what Jews wore in those days because they were living in the Middle East. This is happening in somewhere in Iran, right, in Babylonia. So if you were there, you would raise up your thing to run faster, to go to the idol worship. That's how enticing it was. Lamacha the next day, Rav Ashi is about to give his lecture. Amalahu l'Rabbanon. He told his students, the scholars he was teaching, Niftach, we're going to begin our class, Brabuse, with our teachers. Yesterday he said tomorrow we're going to talk about our colleagues. Now he said we're going to talk about our teachers because they're far superior than us. End of story. So here you see in the story, and I think that's why I think it fits well with my interpretation, with the interpretation I gave earlier. First of all, the Gemara is highlighting the fact that Menashe was a scholar. And these kings were scholars. And furthermore, it also highlights even the fact that they lost their share in the world to come because of idol worship wasn't because they were necessarily bad people, but because of their Yetzer.
They had a higher test to overcome.
That's correct. It's almost like the whole story is almost like an excuse for them. The Gemara is almost excusing them. So that's why I'm thinking that maybe the Gemara is kind of, the Rav Ashi and Rabbi, they're kind of talking about these people in hopes to highlight their virtuous side, in hopes maybe to redeem their neshama somewhere up there. In other words, Rav Ashi comes to school the next day and he's teaching about people who the Gemara declares lost their share in the world to come. And how does he introduce them? Our teachers. If that's not redemptive to these people, if that's not an attempt to redeem these people, I'm not sure what would be. Right? This is the highest accolades that can possibly be said. Rav Ashi is referring to them as a teachers. So perhaps that's what the Gemara is doing, trying to give a positive spin on this whole Gemara.
What we're saying is really that idol worship in those days was very different.
Idol worship in those days, yeah. The Gemara elsewhere compares the desire for idol worship equal to our biological urges to be with the opposite gender. That's how intense it was. That's how intense it was. They were also intertwined. The activities were intertwined. Serving idol worship and all these things were intertwined. And Gilei Arayos, yeah.
Hashem removed that desire?
The Gemara discusses elsewhere that the sages negotiated to get rid of it. They locked the desire in a box, actually, to be exact. And there's a reading which is the locking in the box, is that they put that the desire for idol worship they stuck into money. Locked in a box, as in locked in your chest, locked in money. So one reading of that Gemara. But yeah, the Gemara does say that the desire for idol worship has been at least removed.
They prayed for it.
Was that after the Kiddush?
Way later when they prayed for this. Way after, towards the beginning of the Second Temple period.
Second Temple. They prayed
beginning of the Second Temple period.
Three things. One of them was to idolatry. One was to pray for the incest, and then forbidden relations in general.
Well,
so the incest to kind of blind the eyes.
That's a reading in the Gemara. It's not the literal interpretation of the Gemara. That's probably the correct reading of the Gemara, but it's not literally the Gemara. The Gemara just said that they tried to get rid of the desire for intimacy at all. Yeah. And the Gemara says they couldn't find because they did it. Yeah, they got rid of the
chicken wouldn't lay an egg.
That's right. But a chicken wouldn't lay an egg because they got rid of the desire for intimacy. A chicken wouldn't lay an egg. The Gemara said that there used to be a healing. There used to be a medicinal properties to an egg that was born that day, that was hatched that day. And the Gemara says they couldn't find one because they got rid of the desire for intimacy. So chickens weren't cohabitating. And so they released the desire for intimacy because they need that for the world to work, but they blinded it. Yeah, that's the end of the Gemara. So the common reading is that blinded means that you don't see the opposite gender that's right in front of you. You don't desire that which you see most, which is your own family. So in the old time, people used to desire their own families. And today we don't, because they blinded that. Always, the most obvious of things you see, you don't desire. That's the kind of reading of the Gemara. But that's really, maybe, it's an interesting Gemara, maybe we'll look about that another time.
The desire for idol worship was so intense, like you said. And it was a Chelek.
Yeah.
The punishment was, you'd think the punishment would be less severe, okay, I mean.
So that's
Hashem, you gave us this almost
impossible
sages, falling for it. So why is the punishment so hard?
And maybe that's exactly what the Gemara is doing here. The Gemara is being Melitz Yosha. The Gemara is being defendants, as it were, for Jews who fell to this by putting it on record that this is something that's very, very difficult to overcome. Right? The Gemara itself declares that God Himself regrets the Yetzer Hara, right?
And they didn't
as it were.
Do tshuva on
that.
Apparently these three.
Yeah. They didn't do tshuva.
I mean, you would think.
Menashe, but not to Rabbi.
But even Menashe, the Gemara still because he lost his share in the world to come.
But there's a machlek, because the Gemara says it back and forth.
We'll get to that also. He was.
But the other
even Achav, the Gemara has positive things to say about Achav. The Gemara said, by the way, it's interesting. The Gemara just now said positive things about Menashe. Yeah. Just now, the Gemara earlier said positive things about Yeravam, and that he was equal to Achia Shiloni in Torah scholarship,
actually,
like the field.
But he rejected it.
He was given, yeah. But the Gemara still. Yesterday about the God grabs him by the clothing, and the Gemara. And the Gemara tomorrow, actually no, tomorrow I'm not going to be here, but maybe Monday, is going to discuss positive things about Achav also. Try to find positive things about him. So maybe that's the context of the Gemara.
You're away for Shabbos?
Sorry?
You're away?
Yeah, I'm going to Chicago. They asked me to speak there for Shabbos. Okay, have a wonderful day, everybody.